Thunder rolled over Founders Hall as the floor vibrated like a hidden drum, and Dr. Maya Ellis said, "Hear that hum?" She wanted answers more than sleep. The corridor lights flickered, then steadied in a cold, blue wash. Old portraits washed. The air smelled of wet limestone and dust. She traced hairline cracks where wood met stone and whispered, "Where'd you hide it?" Her phone compass spun, then froze. Ethan Park said sensors logged anomalies at midnight again. She nodded, pulse quickening with the building's faint tremor. A plaque rattled tapping time. She feared not ghosts but reputation. Provost Leonard Graves said, "Close this wing." The hum deepened like a breath drawn underground. A draft pushed under an office door. Maya knelt, pressed the warped plank, and felt it flex. Something clicked beneath her palm. The light at the end of the hall died, leaving a square of dark that seemed to listen. What waits under the oldest room? Morning brought a clean sky, but the building kept its secret hum. And Maya said, it wasn't power surge. It was intent. She filed a request for access and counted the hours like beats. Ethan said, "Permits take weeks," she answered. "Then we look with our eyes." The archive smelled of paper and lemon oil. Microfilm machines clacked softly like teeth. Gabriel Sloan said some doors prefer patience. He slid a blueprint across the desk, brow unreadable. Her goal sharpened into a line on old parchment. The hatch outline hid under a stairwell sketch. She felt hope, then fear, like twin rails. A torn corner mentioned deliveries at midnight in 1979. Outside, a bell tolled 12 slow notes. She asked, "Who signed for them?" He smiled without warmth and said, "Someone who still works here. Which signature will betray itself first?" Ethan ran the building's sensor logs and said, "The hum maps to a lattice under Founders Hall." Keyboard clicks tapped like rain. Maya traced the waveform and felt it tug at her chest. "Not random," she said, repeatable. The sound rose every midnight, then tapered at 12:06. She imagined machinery stretching awake. The custodian's schedule showed Ruth Holloway alone on those nights. A knot of guilt formed. She hated dragging others into risk. Ethan said, if there's a sub-basement, it was erased on purpose. A printer spat brittle pages that smelled like warm plastic and dust. Her fear slid under her resolve and locked in place. She circled a hollow square on the plan. "We go tonight," she said. The lights dimmed from a timed test. In the soft dark, the hum returned like it heard its name. "Will the floor answer when she knocks?" They met at the stairwell landing where air turned cold and sweet like old stone. Maya said, "Footsteps carry here." Her voice came back thinner. She knelt and tapped the second tread. A hollow note answered, bright and wrong. Ethan held the flashlight low to keep glare off the wood. A shimmer of dust drifted like signal noise. "If we lift it, we commit," he said. She thought of careers, grants, quiet dinners. She never had time. The hum rose from the bones of the building. She felt it in her teeth. "Commit," she said. The pry bar slipped under the riser. The stair groaned like it remembered a burden. A draft kissed her wrist. The flashlight flickered once and steadied. She swallowed the taste of iron. The hallway beyond was empty, but listening. What wakes when a sealed step finally moves? The step lifted a finger's width and stopped, as if a hand below held it back. Maya said, "Please to wood and time." The bar bit deeper. Ethan counted under his breath like a metronome. The seam popped and exhaled air cold enough to sting. She smelled ozone and something sweet, almost floral. The hum narrowed into a single thread, a tone that begged to be followed. "We document everything," she said, voice steady to hide the tremor. He nodded, camera already blinking red. A thin metal latch gleamed inside the gap. She reached in, heart knocking the seconds apart. The building answered with a low click that felt like consent. From somewhere above, a door closed on its own. She froze, listening. The tone sharpened, inviting and unkind. Is the first door opening, or the last warning? Sirens cracked the quiet as Founders Hall dumped students into the rain, and Maya said, "Someone pulled the alarm to flush us out." The light strobed, turning faces into masks. Her breath shook, then steadied. Ethan said, "We split or were boxed." She hated the math of fear, but her ribs already counted it. Security barked orders that scattered the crowd like leaves. The hum leaked under thunder, thin but certain. "Trust me," Ethan said, and she flinched at the word. A guard waved them toward the quad, then spoke into his mic, eyes on Maya. She felt watched by more than cameras. The blueprint in her bag struck her spine with each step like a ticking guilt. She angled toward the library shadow. A text from an unknown number flashed. "Stop the stair." Her pulse spiked. A dark sedan idled by the curb and did not move. Which way leads away from their net? They hid in the map room, where old globes held quiet seas. The storm softened to a steady hiss on the leaded glass. Ethan said, "I'm sorry I pushed you to split," she said. "You didn't." The room smelled of linen paper and old glue. Her hands trembled and then learned stillness on the table edge. "Who texted you?" he asked. "A coward," she said, but her voice softened at his worry. The blueprint lay between them like a shared secret. He said, "We can walk away." She felt the tug of a different life, and let it pass. A brass compass on the shelf tilted by itself and stopped. She saw the needle hold a new line. "It listens to the hum," she said. He smiled, small and tired. Then we listened back. The clock chimed once. In the quiet, a floorboard popped under a distant foot. "What waits in the room we think is safe." Morning brought orders that felt like chains. Graves stood before the faculty, smooth and grave, and said, "Safety requires closure." His voice held velvet and steel. Maya watched Security Chief Owen Hale patrol the aisle like a quiet storm. Hale's badge flashed each time the light swung. "Compliance is non-negotiable," Hale said, not looking at her, looking through her. The permits vanished in a fog of forms. Ethan whispered, "They're sealing the stair." She tasted metal and kept her face calm. Graves' gaze found her and did not blink. "Curiosity is not a license," he said. She answered nothing, because defiance loves silence. A courier delivered a box of new locks, each tagged for Founders Hall. The hum was absent, which frightened her more. Control had a scent like cold air in a vault. How long before the door closes on her hand? Gabriel met her in the archive stacks, where light fell in narrow ladders. He said, "You seek a sound that remembers." His words settled like dust. She said, "Someone made it and buried it." He touched a ledger and paused. In 79, a test failed, and a life faltered. She felt anger move under her ribs like heat. "Names," she said. "Not yet," he said, and his eyes flicked toward the ceiling, listening. He slid an envelope across the shelf. Inside lay a faded photo of the lab door with chalk marks like equations. "Doors ask questions before they open," he said. She thought of the stair and her stubborn hand. "If I answer wrong?" she asked. "Doors close," he said. The hum rose faintly through the stacks, gentle as a warning. Wisdom can feel like an apology. Which truth costs less, silence or proof? She walked the length of Founders Hall and chose the night. Fear kept pace but did not lead. Ethan said, "If we're caught, careers end." She said, "If we stop, a life stays lost." The plan was simple, the way cliffs are simple. Power cut at 2. Meet at the stair at 2:05, hide the pry bar under fiction returns. He nodded, eyes bright with dread and resolve. Rain would mask the sound. The hum returned at noon, thin as a thread pulled through cloth, and held a steady note like a promise. She texted Gabriel a single word, "tonight." No answer came, which felt like consent. At dusk, Graves locked his office and walked out without looking back. She felt the campus lean toward midnight. The world narrowed to wood, stone, breath. When the clock struck 2, she moved. Is she breaking in? Or breaking out of their lie? Calm drifted over the stairwell like a held breath. The power was down and the building felt gentle, almost kind. A flashlight beam found clean edges where chaos should live. Ethan said, "We have time." The words soothed and unsettled her. A figure stepped from the landing shadow with a small smile. "Daniel Reed," he said, "facilities liaison." Relief lifted her shoulders, then hesitated. He held a ring of old keys that chimed softly. "I can help," Daniel said, as if reading their need. His glance slid past the blueprint too smoothly. The air smelled faintly of cologne and machine oil. She said, "Why now?" he said. "Because I was late before." The word before clung to the stone. The hum rose like a question. She felt the quiet tilt, just a degree. What debt does he think he is paying tonight? They worked the riser while Daniel watched the corridor. He said, "Security rotates every 10. She said, "You sound certain." He smiled without showing teeth. Ethan whispered, "He knows patterns we never saw." The plank lifted clean this time, as if agreeing. Sweat prickled her neck, though the air was cold. "I should have told you sooner," Daniel said, voice low. About the sealed workroom. She felt a small door open inside her and then pause. "Tell me now," she said. He looked at the chalk mark in the photo and traced it in air. "It's not a warning," he said. "It's a calibration." The word fell neat and heavy. Ethan said, "Like tuning an instrument." She met Daniel's eyes and saw a flicker of something like grief or rehearsal. The stair clicked. The hum answered. Is the help a bridge or a fuse? The passage breathed old air that tasted like batteries. At the bottom, a steel door waited with a wheel lock. Daniel said, "Turn slow or it screams." Ethan said, "How do you know?" Daniel didn't answer, and the silence carried weight. Maya felt the machine behind the door like a tide. She said, "If this is what I think, it records sound as light," he said, "or bends one into the other." His voice held awe and caution in equal measure. The wheel moved with stubborn grace. She thought of Lila and the night that stole her. Control hummed in the metal like a held command. "We set terms," she said. Daniel said, "It sets them." The door eased on a whisper. Her certainty shifted, not broken but less proud. Who owns a truth that can order the room around it? Inside, the lab waited, cables coiled like quiet snakes, panels asleep. Daniel crossed to a breaker with the care of someone who knows consequences by name. "Don't," she said, too late for the switch. Light flowed over the room. The machine bloomed with a low chord that vibrated in her teeth. Ethan said, "We needed proof," but his voice was small. A second chord rose, and with it a wall of images. Ghost-bright voices turned to light. Daniel said, "It was always meant to run." She saw a date burned into a board and her stomach dropped. He had timed them. "You brought us to make it sing," she said. He flinched, then set his jaw. Footsteps gathered beyond the door like a storm deciding. The breaker locked with a dull clack. Whose side is the power now on? Silence arrived after the chord like a verdict. She stood very still and felt the shape of the trap. Ethan said, "We can shut it down," but doubt sat heavy in his throat. She realized Daniel had not betrayed for hate, but for a chance to rewrite a night that never left him. "Who asked you to do this?" she said. He looked at the floor as if it might forgive him. Outside, a radio crackled. Men aligning. She tasted the choice and found it raw. The images on the wall slowed and held. A face almost formed. A hand reaching. She said, "We take what it shows and run." He said, "You will not make it far." Her anger cooled into a plan. The machine hummed, waiting for orders. She met Ethan's eyes. The door latch clicked. What line will she cross to carry the truth upstairs? Silence fell after the machine's cord, as if the lab forgot how to breathe. Dust hung like pale confetti, and Dr. Maya Ellis felt the ache where trust had torn. Ethan Park said, "We're not trapped yet," and the words felt thin. Her pulse slowed, counting cables, counting doors, counting choices. Daniel Reed waited by the breaker, mouth set, eyes tired. She replayed keys, locks, alarms, the way Graves looked through her. The hum ebbed to a faint thread, like a memory that refuses to quit. "You needed us to turn it on," she said, and Daniel looked away. The air smelled of warm copper and old paper. A classroom burned into night. She studied chalk on the doorframe, marks that matched the photo's ghost math. A pattern clicked, not in metal, but in motive. If the device records light from sound, what else did it keep? The scent of ozone pulled a corridor from another year, and memory stepped in. Chalk dust on a sleeve, a door wheel turning, a laugh cut short. Maya's voice folded past into present. "Lila Monroe tried to stop it," she said, and the walls seemed to nod. Daniel whispered. We heard the tone rise like a tide. Ethan asked, "Who kept it rising?" A ledger page flashed in her mind. Deliveries at midnight, signatures neat as lies. "They tuned the room to swallow dissent," she said. A faint echo answered from the vent, a voice shaped like fear. "She warned them on test night," Daniel said, and his hands shook. The projector bloom froze, forming a student badge, then blurred. "They needed a success," Maya said, and sorrow bent her breath. Truth arrived on soft feet and carried a cost no one returned. They climbed to the archive where quiet has a spine. Gabriel Sloan waited in the aisle, hands folded, gaze steady. He said, "You opened what was meant to sleep." Maya stood close enough to hear his breath catch. "You knew the calibration," she said. He closed his eyes, then opened them with care. "I knew the pattern grief makes," he said. Ethan watched silent, the clock tick, carving space. Heartbeats tapped in Maya's ears, patient, angry, alive. "Did you sign for the midnight boxes?" she asked. His pause spoke first. "I kept records when others erased," he said. Then softer, "I also kept my job." Paper creaked under his grip. "Lila warned me," he added, voice like glass. "I filed her warning into a drawer marked storms." The purpose shifted inside Maya from finding to naming. Leonard Graves called a closed meeting in the auditorium, voice smooth as velvet rope. "Progress demands risk," he said, "and memory misleads." Maya felt the room lean toward him, polite gravity. "You hid a failure by burying a person," she said, and the sentence landed like iron. Graves spread his hands. "We preserved the institution," he answered, calm and bright. Owen Hale stood by the door, a hinge that would not argue. "You think safety is silence," Maya said. Graves smiled. "I think truth without context is arson." The lights hummed, steady, a choir of rules. "Lila chose to intervene," he added, soft with judgment. "And you chose to proceed," Maya said, soft with rage. Her faith in process cracked, not to dust, but to edges. Night again, rain again, but her breath was different. Maya walked the hall where fear first spoke and let it finish. "So this was the truth all along," she said, and the words did not break her. Ethan stood beside her, quiet with respect, not rescue. The machine would not unmake what it sang, but it could witness. "We show it all," she said. Daniel lingered in the doorway, small and brave. "I'll face it," he said, and she heard the crack where shame lets light in. The floor's tremor felt like heartbeat now, not threat. She was not hunting a myth. She was naming a wound. Loss stayed, but it stopped steering. She exhaled, steady, ready. When the clock turned 2, she reached for the latch with open eyes. Footsteps gathered like thunder behind a door not yet opened. The lab lights trembled once, then steadied into a hard white. Breath sounded loud enough to measure. Ethan whispered, 3 seconds. Maya counted with him, pulse in her wrists. Owen Hale's radio crackled, then went cold. "You will power down," he said outside, voice thin but sharp. She said, "Record now," and the machine's panels woke. The cord rose low and wide, pressing on ribs. Daniel set his back to the breaker, eyes clear. The room narrowed to a line between choice and cost. Graves' shoes tapped the corridor, patient, certain. Maya set the calibration like a lock turning. The images started to form. Impact waited on the next breath. The door swung and Owen Hale entered with 2 officers, stance like a verdict. "Shut it down," he said. Maya answered, "It shows what you hid." Graves stepped in slow, a smile made of rules. "You endanger students," he said. "You endangered one," she replied. Words hit like short strikes. Ethan called out timestamps, voice clipped. Daniel said, "Let it complete the cycle." Hale reached for the breaker and found Daniel's shoulder unmoving. "You choose ruin," Hale said. "We choose witness," Maya said. The machine threw up a frame of chalk marks and a face half born of light. Graves faltered, then hardened. The room stuttered between orders and truth. The fight began without fists, each sentence carving space. The image sharpened, and Lila Monroe stepped out of light long enough to matter. Her recorded voice said, "Stop the test," and the room forgot to breathe. Hale hesitated, then lunged. Daniel took the hit, back against steel, breath blown out. "Not again," he said, and the words were prayer and penance. Maya felt the machine strain and tuned it gentler. Ethan's hand shook as he steadied the recorder. The officers paused, ears catching the past. Daniel sagged, eyes bright with pain but steady. "Hold the picture," he whispered. The cord dipped, then held. Cost counted itself in ribs and silence. Maya knew what the proof would take and chose it anyway. Graves moved closer, voice low and cutting. "Archive this and you burn a campus," he said. "Bury this and you burn a person." Maya answered. The machine pulsed brighter, light against the rain, tapping the vents. Hale tried again, and Daniel locked arms with him, both straining. "This is order," Hale said. "This is repair," Maya said, turning the final calibration. Lila's last seconds resolved. A hand on the breaker, a mouth shaping no. The room split between past and present, fire and rain. Graves reached for the plug and met Maya's stare, then stopped. "You will carry this stain," he said. "Better than carrying your silence," she said, and hit export. The cord fell to a hush, leaving breath and rain to finish the song. Officers stood unsure, rules bent by what they saw. Hale let go first, chest heaving, eyes turned from his badge to the wall. Graves smoothed his tie with hands that trembled. Daniel slid down the panel, pain and calm sharing space. Ethan handed Maya the drive. It felt heavier than metal. "We're done here," she said, not loud, not weak. The lab seemed smaller now, like a truth after it stops hiding. She listened for the hum and heard only rain. "An era ends," she whispered, and the room did not argue. She walked toward the door and did not look back. Dawn seeped into the lab like a slow tide, and the machines finally slept. The air held rain and metal, a calm after voices had burned. Dr. Maya Ellis stood still and let silence name the room. Ethan Park breathed in steady counts that softened at the edges. Daniel Reed pressed a cloth to his ribs and stared at the floor as if it could forgive. The panels dimmed to a low pulse, almost kind. Every echo had left, and the emptiness felt honest. "We made it through," Ethan whispered, and the words did not ask for an answer. A thin curl of dust drifted and settled on the console like snowfall. Maya counted losses she could not repair and wins she could barely hold. The cord was gone, but the stain remained. She touched the drive and knew what could never return. Outside, the campus breathed thin morning air, wet grass shining like small truths. Maya walked the path where alarms had once scattered fear. The quiet felt heavy and kind at the same time. She saw flashes as she moved. Chalk on a door, a compass freezing, a face built from light. It should not have needed proof. She whispered into the breeze. Guilt pressed and then loosened, like a knot learned to open. Birds tried a hesitant chorus and did not flee. She pictured the drawer marked storms in the hand that closed it. She pictured the night Lila Monroe stood between harm and pride. Relief and sorrow met, shook hands, and stood apart. Life would continue, not as it was, but as it had to be. In the map room, time moved like a slow pendulum. Daniel waited by the window with a grim smile that did not ask pardon. "I'm ready to sign my statement," he said. And the words hung clean. Ethan placed a cup of tea, hands steady now that danger had passed. Maya felt the ache of the night, then the ease of truth chosen. "Thank you for standing in the way," she said. And he looked away, eyes bright. The room held 3 heartbeats and 1 distant bell. Forgiveness entered not as thunder, but as rain on leaves. She did not erase what he had done, but she let him stand closer to the light. In that small mercy, the clock's tick lost its edge. Gabriel Sloan unlocked a narrow drawer and set a cassette on the table. Dust lifted, then fell in a tiny storm. Her note was brief, he said, voice careful. Maya pressed play and a small hiss became a young voice. Lila said, "If this runs when I am gone, tell them I tried to stop it." The room held its breath for her. Gabriel's eyes softened, then found stillness. "I kept this to protect an archive," he said, "and harmed a person." The sentence weighed more than the tape. Maya felt rage pass through her and leave a thread of grace. "We will put her name on the door," she said. "We will put her name on the door." A single tear warmed a cold morning and did not feel like defeat. At the stair, Maya laid a new brass plate where the tread once hid a secret. The metal felt cool and final beneath her palm. Students passed with the soft shuffle of a day returning. "Say it," Ethan said, not as order but as promise. Lila Monroe stopped a machine and started a truth. Maya answered, and the hallway carried it. She set the plate flush and listened to the wood accept it. No hum rose, only the hush of a building learning to breathe right. Daniel stood back, a witness without excuses. The lights steadied in clean lines. The choice had been made and lived in metal and air. The road ahead waited, and she was ready to walk it. Morning settled like a gentle hand over the oldest building. The windows held soft light that did not demand or accuse. Dr. Maya Ellis stood in the corridor and counted breaths, slow and even. Ethan Park joined her without words. Daniel Reed lingered at the far end, small in the calm. A janitor's cart rolled by, wheels humming a lullaby to the floor. "We did what we came to do," Ethan said, and she nodded once. Loss remained, but it no longer ruled the air. The brass plate caught a bright shard and threw it back. She touched the wall where portraits once rattled. Was it worth it? She asked herself, and listened to the quiet for her answer. She walked the quad path that had once churned with sirens. Each step felt like stitching a seam. Ethan said, "Classes resume at noon." She smiled at the ordinary weight of that line. They crossed a puddle that held a small sky. "We send the files today," she said, and the words landed without tremor. Wind pressed the trees into a slow bow. Footprints faded behind them as the sun found their edges. At the archive door, she paused and looked back only once. Then, she kept walking, letting the night dissolve into memory, not myth. In a quiet office, a monitor played the exported sequence. Lila Monroe's voice arrived like sunlight through blinds. "Stop the test," she said, and then softer, "keep each other." The room did not cry. It listened. Maya felt the line settle in the body like a new bone. Daniel stood behind her and did not speak. Gabriel waited at the threshold, hands folded, learning how to stand with truth. The last frame held steady on chalk, then faded. The theme was simple and wide as the sky. Care is louder than proof. Days unfolded with gentler rhythm. The memorial plate drew flowers, notes, and a few silent hands. Lectures resumed, and doors opened without secrets under their steps. Owen Hale walked the hall once, slower than before. Leonard Graves kept his meetings small and cautious. Ethan laughed at a small joke and let it last. Maya taught her class and felt the room listen differently. The campus turned like a wheel that had shed a stone. Change did not shout, it breathed. At dusk, she stood alone by the stair and listened to nothing. The quiet felt earned. She placed her palm on the brass and closed her eyes. "Truth must never be owned," she said, and the line traveled the hall like light. Then she smiled, small and certain, and let her hand fall. The night accepted the day's work and did not argue. She turned toward the door and stepped into the soft dark that promised a cleaner dawn.